Welcome to the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. I'm your host, Robin L. Owens, PhD, and this is where we dive in each week to give advice, tools, and tips for high-achieving women leaders, and we talk about leadership purpose and its importance for you. I am a college professor, and when I am not doing that, I am speaking, writing, coaching, mentoring, and teaching high-achieving women leaders how to find, and not only find, but how to stay in alignment with their leadership purpose so they can make a meaningful difference right there in their career, leadership, or business. Okay, let's dive in. Before we get into the episode, I have an exciting invitation for you. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Robin, and I want to let you know and invite you to a new group I started. It's called the Leadership Purpose Community. The Leadership Purpose Community. And it's a group that I think would be a really good fit for you as a listener of the podcast, because it's an extension of the podcast and we discuss a lot of the issues we do in the podcast and even more. And we'll be focusing on finding fulfillment in our work through leadership purpose. We'll address issues that face high-achieving women, issues and challenges, and we also will celebrate the achievements of high-achieving women. And you know, as I always say, what I mean by high-achieving women, women who are professional, ambitious, goal-oriented, doing all the things and supporting everyone else. This group is for you. And so I think you'd really enjoy it. And I'd love to have you come and join us. Love, love, love to have you come and join us. So if you're interested, come on over to Facebook and search for the Leadership Purpose Community, or go directly to the website, www.facebook.com/groups/Leadership Purpose Community. Again, www.facebook.com/groups/Leadership Purpose Community. I'd really love for you to join us. Hope to see you there. Okay, let's get to the episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm so glad you're here and that you take time to listen into the podcast. I know I say it all the time, and I'm going to say it again and again. I really appreciate you. You're competing with your time for work and play and family and all the things you're doing, and you take time out of your busy schedule to listen to the podcast, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for doing that. And today, it's sort of a historic moment for the podcast. It's the first time we have a guest who is returning, a first-time returning guest. So she gets the distinction of being the first. And she is Lynda McDermott. She is an author, certified speaking professional, and founder and president of EquiPro International, which was founded in 1987. And she's the author of the brand new book, Stay in the Game Leadership Playbook. Stay in the Game Leadership Playbook, and we're going to hear more about that later. But let me tell you a little bit about EquiPro. It's an international strategic management consulting firm specializing in leadership, team, and business development, and alliance management. They provide consulting and executive coaching to Fortune 500, medium-sized, and entrepreneurial companies and professional services. And Lynda has over 25 years of experience in helping individuals and teams get the results they want by enhancing their leadership, team, business development, and so much more. So she has worked in management and organizational development for her entire career. And we welcome Lynda McDermott. Welcome, Lynda.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks a lot for inviting me back.
Yes, actually, I should say, welcome back, Lynda. So glad you're here and that we have this opportunity. I really wanted to talk to you again because you didn't have this book out when we talked last time. And so I wanted to have the opportunity for our listeners to hear more about you and the book. And by the way, for people who are listening now, and if you didn't catch the episode with Lynda way back in the early days of the podcast, go back to episode 4 and you can find that one there. We got a lot of positive feedback from that one too. All right. So Lynda, let's start with, tell us a little bit about you and the work you do.
Okay. Well, you did such a good job of explaining it. I don't have a lot to add.
Well, this way in your own words.
Yeah, I will do that. So I focus primarily on executives and entrepreneurs. And what I work with them on is being very clear on the results they want to achieve for their own personal leadership and team and organizational success. And then from there, once we set those goals, then we develop strategies to help them get there and get the results that they need. So that's primarily the work that we do. And as you mentioned, I would say that the work I do is divided probably into two tracks. One would be the individual executive coaching, one-on-one. And then the other is training and workshops, but all of which has gone virtual. All of that I used to do face-to-face, used to do work in hotels, offsites, things like that. It's all virtual. I think I had my first face-to-face workshop 2 weeks ago. Ever since the lockdown in March of 2020, everything's been virtual. And so, but that's really the work that I do. It's very results focused, very customized to the results you're trying to achieve. I've worked in over 35 countries. And as recently, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I did work for Saudi Arabia, for an agency in Saudi Arabia. And that we had to take a 1 day, 6-hour workshop and divide it into 2 days, 4 hours one day, 4 hours the next. I was getting up at 2:00 in the morning, my time.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it had to be because we had to work off their time. So, but it was for them, of course, English was a second language, so that was a challenge. But so everything's turned virtual. But it enabled me now to do work, not to get on an airplane to go to 35 countries, but to do work in Asia or Europe or Latin America via Zoom. So that's the work that I do, and I love my work. Yeah. Absolutely love my work.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What do you love about it?
For me, every new client is a challenge because I don't treat it as cookie cutter. It's not like a training workshop where you get up and you do the same agenda, the same program over and over and over again. Everything I do is customized. So we start with the results that you're trying to achieve, and that's going to be different for everybody. And then we get at, okay, well, what's getting in your way of achieving these results? And so it's all customized. That's what I love about it. There's nothing cookie cutter at all in what I do.
Yeah, that sounds great. And you must be good at it if you could do it at 2:00 in the morning.
I know. My biggest concern, of course, is, am I going to hear the alarm? But I put that phone right next to my ear and I set two alarms. I've not missed one at all. But that's always my biggest concern is, I don't want to oversleep.
Right.
But it has never happened because I set 2 alarms but it's actually, and I never go to, so the workshop was like a Monday and then a Tuesday, and I don't go to sleep. We're done at 6:00 in the morning and I just go get some coffee or Diet Pepsi and just start my day. And now I go to bed around 7:00, 8:00 at night, but, I can last the whole day, I think, because I'm running on adrenaline, because I know I'm doing good work, and it's via Zoom. So they have breakout rooms and a lot of Q&A. So it's highly energizing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And, I used to joke, but now you kind of made it true. I used to tell people to indicate that they're good at something. I say, you're so good at it, you can do it at 2:00 in the morning. and it's true in your case.
It's true.
You do something at that time, I think you're really good.
Right.
So that's exciting. And since we talked last, you have a new book that came out. Tell us about your book.
Okay, I have a new book. It's called Stay in the Game Leadership Playbook. And it's leadership strategies for dealing with curveballs, calamities, and crises. So I wanted to get that alliteration in there. So, and so it's got 7 chapters, and they're really how-to chapters. I had a word count limit of like 12,000 words because it's an ebook. And so they gave me a limit. So the chapters are you can read it very fast. You can read the whole book in like less than 2 hours. So, but how-to, so ranging from how do you navigate change? How do you set up a high-performing leadership team? How do you lead your life and not just live it? So it's very, very how-to chapters and words of wisdom that I've used in my coaching practice. So it was great to pull it together, to pull all these resources that I've used for how many years and pull it into kind of one place. And It is an ebook, and so we'll tell you more about it towards the end of the podcast about how to get it. But you won't be able to get it on Amazon. You've got to get it directly from the publisher. So that's presenting a little bit of a marketing challenge, but that's okay. I'm just really, really proud of it, and I know there's a lot of good, helpful information in it.
Yes.
Very how to oriented. Lots of stories, lots of examples.
Yes, and I recall, and I'm familiar with the title. Don't just lead your life, live it.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that chapter? Maybe a little sneak peek of some thoughts that might.
Sure. Well, I think for many of us, we maybe went to college and started into a profession. You're a professor, and we got our first job, and then maybe we got our second job, and then we kept getting promoted or got different career opportunities, and we took advantage of those, and life was good, and we made good, hopefully made good money. But it's sort of like for many of us, we were kind of on automatic. And my point of that chapter is, are you just living your life, or are you leading it? Who's in charge here? And interestingly enough, to just digress a little bit, is that this great resignation movement has really called that big time into question. People are saying, should I stay or should I go? And now that I've seen, a work-life balance issue maybe managed differently, people are really questioning this. And we didn't used to do that at all. And so I think that chapter will have a lot more relevancy for people who are going to really going to look very, very seriously. Am I just on automatic here in terms of my relationships, my work, my family, or am I going to get conscious about this?
Yes.
Conscious choices.
Yes. Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people from across, the spectrum, across fields and across, all sections of work. So yeah, that sounds like it really would be relevant for almost anyone. Right. And as you know, my work is around supporting high achieving women.
Right.
And when I say high achieving, I mean women who are professional, goal oriented, ambitious, leaders, maybe in official capacity or unofficial capacities.
Right.
And they are kind of doing all the things. And they're the ones that typically at work and at home in all areas of their life, they're the ones that support other people. Mm-hmm. And because they're doing all the things and doing it well, it looks easy.
Right.
So they don't get support because people think they don't need anything.
Right.
So I created the podcast to support that woman, the high achieving women. And I always throw in there a few good men.
For sure.
I've heard from some men who are regular listeners of the podcast, and I so appreciate them. So I always throw that in there. But for now, our focus will be, the conversation right now is on high achieving women. So what do you think is one main challenge that high achieving women face, the kind of women I just described, because I'm sure you run into them all the time?
Well, actually, I coach both men and women and have all my career. It just happens that right now I'm coaching 5 very high achieving women. They're at the top. If they're not on the senior leadership team, they're like one rung below. And I was thinking about this question, and I was saying, Lynda, is there like a common theme just among these 5? And I said, yes, there is. And I don't think it's happenstance. The common challenge that each one of them are facing, and I do, by the way, as part of my coaching process, I do 360 interviews. So I interview bosses, peers, direct reports to find out what's going on in terms of this person's leadership style and results they're trying to get, and something, feedback on their competencies and so forth. And among these 5, and I bet if I went back and looked at all the coaching reports I've done that it would not be unique to these 5. They, generally speaking, get high marks from their direct reports in terms of being a good boss and providing delegation and empowerment and direction and so forth. And generally speaking, good feedback from their bosses. The difficulty, the challenge is having good, positive relationships with their peers or key stakeholders. So I was reflecting on these 5 women, like, okay, Lynda, what's the pattern here? And I took some notes to myself, and I said, the problem, the reason why it's a challenge, I believe, is because these peers don't work for these women. They are literally peers. They
Mhm.
might serve with them on a leadership team, but there's not a managerial relationship between me and my peer that I'm trying to establish a good relationship with. And so what it requires you stepping out of your silo, figuring out what might this peer need from me? How could I help this peer become successful? Because that's how you're going to build a relationship,
Mhm.
is what's in it for them. So what they've not spent much time on when I show up is they say, I got a problem. I got to get better peer relationships with these stakeholders that I got to get, because usually they have to get stuff done with them in
Mhm.
collaboration. And I'm not doing a good job of doing that. So that is definitely something that cuts across senior executive women, at least the ones I'm coaching. So that's where we're spending a lot of our time, is nailing down who is the most important, who are the most influential, and what are you going to do about it? How are
Mhm.
you going to build trust with these people? How are you going to get them to collaborate with you? I was just on the phone today, actually, with a tax partner from one of the big four accounting firms, and she's got issues with her other partners that she's
Mhm.
got to get on top of. She's just an example.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's not something that I would have thought of. I mean, but there's so much I would not have thought of. But what is the issue? Is it that they're not connecting with them? I'm just kind of asking for a point of clarification. They don't have any kind of real connection with them, or there's a connection, there's something that's standing in between.
Well, there's a need for a connection, and it also is a two-way street. It's not just the women I'm coaching that are at issue here. It's also the other peer, the stakeholder. So what they haven't done is they haven't had a heart-to-heart discussion about, do you need me to collaborate with you, and on what, and how can I help you? How can I help you be successful? At some level, I think there's a competition, because if they're peers, well, who's above them? And do I want that job that's above me? And do you want that job that's above you? And
Mm.
so at some level, there's a rivalry and a
Mm.
competitiveness. And if they can find ways of working around each other and not having to have these heart to hearts, that's what they do. Who wants to risk potential conflict and that kind of thing by raising the issues? So the heart of it is to find out around what things can we collaborate, and should we be collaborating for the sake of the whole organization? It's like raising the issue up above each of them and having it be, how do we collaborate for the betterment of the whole organization?
So coming together, being intentional about
Right.
doing those
Exactly.
strategic collaborations, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Is there anything else? I mean, that was sort of a helpful way to address the challenge. Is there anything else that comes to your mind about addressing the challenge, or do you want to just keep going?
For now, I think that's the main one. I mean, I coach them on different things like executive presence, getting themselves heard.
Mm.
Actually, now that I'm talking out loud about it, that is also has been a common theme, which is, I just feel like my voice is not heard,
Mm.
particularly in group settings. And how do I get my voice heard? How do I get my point of view heard? Actually, I'm thinking about one woman that I'm coaching, and individually, if you talk to her, you would not say that she had a confidence problem, but she gets herself into these peer meetings, and it's like she just shuts down. No, it has to do with their executive presence.
And I was going to ask that. What's an insider tip? I mean, I know you go in depth with them and you have to actually do the work, but what's an insider tip about how to either have that executive presence or have your voice heard?
Yeah, what I do is, I mean, I could talk all day about, definitions of executive presence and so forth, but that's not how I coach. I say, okay, let's take a real live example. When was the last time you were in a meeting and you had a point of view or an idea that you wanted to offer and you didn't do it? So let's look. So give me the example, and then tell me, if you can, remember what was going on in your mind about why you shut yourself down. What was your fear? What was your resistance? What was going on in your head at the time that caused you to not be able to open your mouth and talk? Mm-hmm. And so we diagnose it at that level of, it's behavioral. You got to get at the behavior. And then, okay, and so what was the worst thing that could have happened if you'd opened your mouth? And if you would have opened your mouth, what would you have said? So let's practice that. Let's put the DVD in and hit rewind, and let's figure out what you would have said.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, then what kept you from doing that? So it's at that level of behavior that I try and help them, because we could talk, as I said, we could talk definitions of executive presence, from here until the end of the afternoon. And it would not help her get at what's keeping her from speaking out loud.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that is good. I mean, we can kind of take from that and infer and even ask ourselves, whoever's listening now, and someone who might have that particular challenge, and could ask those same questions right now.
Absolutely.
And they also know that they have you as a resource if they wanted to get some more help with that. So that was a really good example. All right. So now let's switch gears a little bit to you as we move along here. Have you ever made any change in your business or career and it involved either one of these four things: your passions, your values, maybe one or two natural abilities, or your commitment to serve something or someone beyond yourself? Any one of those four, did they play a role in you making a change in your business or career? And if so, tell us about it.
Yeah, well, the first example of that came when I was a line manager right out of college with Ohio Bell Telephone Company, and I was a supervisor. And then I learned about a master's in organization development at Bowling Green State University in Ohio. And it was a weekend program, so I didn't have to quit work. I could go over there over the weekends. And so that shifted me from being a line manager and into the field that I've been working in for 35 years in organization development. So that was an early career shift that enabled me to, enhance my education and my knowledge to become a consultant and eventually a coach. The most recent one, though, which was actually harder, was after the lockdown 2 years ago. All my work had been face-to-face or off-site meetings, and all of a sudden, my calendar was cleared because people were canceling those things right and left. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I think part of me meeting you was part of that education of how do I go virtual? I mean, I didn't even know what Zoom was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I am not technically savvy. So I had to go get thank goodness, a bunch of free workshops on how to run a Zoom meeting, how to do what we're doing today, how to share screens. And trust me, this was hard.
Yeah.
It was really, and I was in resistance. I was in major resistance because, I listened to Fauci say, oh, it's only temporary. It's only going to be a month. We're going to get that curve down, or whatever he used to say. Well, a month became 2 months, became 3 months. And all my work, pretty much all my work, I would say 95% of my work now is via Zoom or some platform like that I had to learn. And that's why I was able to do the Saudi Arabia workshop I was telling you about, was because I could now do it in Zoom and use breakout rooms. But I will tell you, and interestingly enough, since I coach people on how to figure out how to change to be more successful, the bottom line is I hate change. My immediate reaction to when change shows up on my doorstep, unannounced, unexpected, I go into resistance. I don't think I'm alone in that. I know I'm not alone in that. But I have another colleague friend of mine, I love change. I said, not me.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like I had a choice. I mean, I'm still, I still had to make a living and just shift everything. So I joined some mastermind groups, like sort of where I met you. And I tried to get as much. I just said, Lynda, you're going to have to become a sponge learner, because you're going to have to learn this and learn whatever technology you can. So.
Yeah. And good for you for doing that. And I think it's fair to say most people are resistant to change. I know there are people like your friend who embrace change, but I would say my guess would be the majority of people resist change. Now, within either of those changes, this most recent one or the one you talked about in the past, did it have any involvement? Were you guided by your passions or your values in any way? Or I know in this most recent case, life changed around you and you had to deal with it. But now I'm trying to get at, it was the recent one or the past one.
Right. Well, I think that maybe a combination of passion, because as I said to you earlier, I love my work. So I wanted to become an organization development consultant. So that I learned about it. And then I found out this program. And then I also realized as I practiced it and so forth, I got good at it. I was really good at it. So it fed, I think it was spurred by passion that this was a career that I thought I could be good at. And then it just got fueled by, it tapped into my natural instincts. And sort of the same with the recent one. I mean, it was out of necessity, trust me, that I was kicking and screaming going down this technology path that I really didn't want to go down. But I wanted to continue my work.
Right.
I wanted to continue my work, and I was good at my work. It's just that I couldn't do it the same way. I couldn't do it face to face. And yeah, you could still do telecons, but it seemed to me that this was the best way. Zoom. I ended up now really liking Zoom. I still like the face to face, but if I can't do face to face, I'll do Zoom or some other Teams platform or whatever. But I do think it was the passion and the natural abilities. I'm like, no, I got to figure out a way to do this work because I love this work.
Yeah.
If I can't do it the old way, I'm going to have to do it the new way.
Yeah. I love that. And the reason why I asked that question is because I talk about this process of making purpose-based decisions, right? And they include those things. And so I'm always interested to see how those aspects of decision-making show up in others' lives. So that's really good to hear. Yeah. All right. So now that we're coming to the end of our time, the time is just going by so fast. You and I can talk all day. And I know you have something right after this. So
that's okay.
Is there anything else you want to share that I didn't get a chance to ask you before we tell people how to get in touch with you?
Sure. I think I want to harken back to the book and the title of the book, Stay in the Game Leadership. I really believe that at this juncture of time, probably we could have said this 10 years ago, who knows? But at this particular juncture of time, I do think stay in the game leadership doesn't mean that you stay the course. Stay in the game leadership says, I am making a conscious decision, sort of like my idol, Tom Brady, who decided to leave the New England Patriots and join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yay, Tampa Bay Bucks. And then he came out of retirement, which I'm delighted about too. But he made a decision. He loved football. And he wasn't ready to retire from the New England Patriots, and obviously not ready to retire from the Bucks because he was retired for like 40 days. He stayed in the game, but changed teams. This time around, he didn't change teams, thank God. But he decided, I'm not ready to give it up yet. So I think it's important at this point in time to really think about, review your life, review all aspects of your life, and say, what do I want to stay in the game, or do I want to retire, often play golf or whatever it is you would do if you retire, or do I want to stay in the game as a leader? Yeah. And then ask yourself, how has this game changed in the last 2 years? How might it change in the next 12 to 18 months? What are the new rules of staying in the game? Do I want to change the game? Leave this organization and go to another organization? What capabilities do I need to develop to be able to stay in the game successfully? And what strategies do I perhaps need to change? So I really want to encourage people to think about the answer to that question. What's it mean to stay in the game as a leader for you today and in the short and long-term future? And what are you going to have to make? What changes are you going to have to make in order to be successful in this new game, whatever that new game might be? So that's so I kind of close on that note.
Yeah, that's food for thought. Those questions are absolutely food for thought, especially as we talked about earlier in this time when people are trying to reevaluate what's really important to them and how to move forward. So that's great. And if you feel like, and I'm talking to everybody who's listening now, if you feel like, I want to hear more about that, we'll have a little special bonus audio over in my Facebook group, the Leadership Purpose Podcast Community Facebook group. And you'll find that in the information about that in the show notes. So go to the show notes or just go to Facebook, Leadership Purpose Podcast Community Group. And there you'll find a little extra audio of this conversation with Lynda and I and how more about staying in the game. All right, Lynda, for now, though, as we get to the end of the podcast, where can people get in touch with you if they want to know more about you?
Sure. Well, you can probably the best way would be to contact me on LinkedIn. So I have obviously a profile there, and you can find me under Lynda, Lynda McDermott. So that's how you can find me on LinkedIn. And then my email address is lmcdermott at EquiProInt.com. That stands for EquiPro International. We love to get emails. So either way is fine. And Robin's going to put this information back in her show notes as well. So you'll be able to contact me. So really, and by the way, I'll just say that what we've been offering over the last year and a half is a free 20 to 30 minute strategy session. If you want to talk to me about, bring me your challenge, and it'd be like having a personal Q&A. Bring me your challenge, and off the top of my head, I'll ask you some questions and give you some feedback and some advice. And that's free.
That's a generous offer. That's really generous. Thank you, Lynda, for that, and for being generous with your time today and sharing with us, and with all the expertise, experience that you have garnered over the years, and taking time to share it with us. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, always enjoyable to talk with you, Robin. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Okay, everyone, if you want to hear more about me or know more about me, you can go on over to my website, robinlowens.com, or you can message me on social media. Just pick your favorite site and you'll find me there at Robin L. Owens, PhD, at Robin L. Owens, PhD. So I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. If you enjoyed it, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week, and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Meanwhile, this is Robin signing off. See you next time.